Good morning, Nashville. My name is Braden Gall, and this is the 440 for Tuesday, March 22nd. Welcome to our long-form Titans debate football edition. Basically, it's a football show. Zach Lyons from the Football and Other F-Words podcast from Broadway Sports Media joins me each and every Tuesday as we dive deep into all things football, primarily Titans here on the show. Zach, good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. We got a lot of stuff to get to on the show today.
I'm probably doing a little bit better than what Ryan Tannehill is just now, because A.J. Brown put out a tweet, which will probably soon be deleted at the time that you probably hear this, that Marcus is the best leader he's ever been around. And people are freaking out that Tannehill's not a leader anymore and that he's a bad leader. Well, you know, I'll just throw this out there. A lot of people think a lot of former presidents were the best leader they've ever been around.
Not anymore. Not anymore.
Well, people prefer different styles of leadership. And I think we all objectively know, if you have ever studied leadership, and I'm big into leadership and what it all means, Marcus is not a better leader than Ryan Tannehill.
Wow.
Just because he's nicer, he's a nice guy, I guess. Maybe that's what A.J. Brown prefers, or maybe A.J. Brown prefers a laid-back approach. It doesn't mean that Tannehill is not a good leader or a great leader. It's just A.J. Brown's stupid opinion, which really doesn't mean a lot.
Wow.
Yeah, in the realm of, if I am looking for someone to get their opinion on leadership, it's not going to be an A.J. Brown.
Hang on. So I haven't even told people what's coming up on the show. I haven't even told people about
it.
I haven't even told people about our wonderful sponsor for this week and next, which is going to be new these 2 weeks. I haven't even told people what's coming up. And you're already telling me that the superstar wide receiver's opinion about his quarterback's leadership ability is stupid and doesn't matter. Because that's completely ridiculous. What does Jarvis Landry think of Ryan Tannehill's leadership ability?
Well, and let me tell you something. He was taking pot shots at everything that has to do with the Dolphins. And you know what he did? He turns around and he's giddy with them. There's scenes, there's video clips of them joking and laughing together at the Pro Bowl. Give me a break, everybody.
Take a deep breath, Zach, okay?
Okay.
The show hasn't even started yet. Take a deep breath.
Do we really know what A.J. Brown even knows what a true leader looks like? Like, that's my thing.
Stop talking. Do you think that it's possible that Marcus Mariota is a pretty damn good leader, and that Ryan Tannehill is a pretty good leader too? Can we just say that?
I don't think Marcus is a good leader at all, and I think he proved that.
I think his teammates love him, and that might make somebody a good leader.
A lot of teammates went back on what they initially said about them once they were off the team, and Malarkey even framed it as such that he's not a good leader. I'm just saying he's not the leader that I would go to war with and expect him to be able to, form a plan or, devise a good strategy or anything. He's just going to sit there and just be like, whatever. Mahalo.
I have Marcus Mariota written down, but it's down here at the bottom of the page. See that, Zach?
Sorry.
It's way down here at the bottom of the page. All right. Damn it. All right. Coming up on the show, a Ryan Tannehill, Rick Barnes comparison. That's right. The one you didn't know you needed in your life today. We're going to talk a lot about Robert Woods, because this is obviously the big news over the weekend. The Titans go out and I think, highway robbery with a very low risk opportunity to bring in a really nice piece in Robert Woods. So really good weekend for Ryan Tannehill, actually. Austin Hooper is signed. He's already talked with the media, the tight end, former Stanford third-round pick, played for the Falcons and the Browns. We'll talk a little bit about the weaponry that is now around Ryan Tannehill. Of course, you've got you're deep in the weeds on cap restructuring, which is, basically my Sunday morning throne time is just spent reading all of your restructuring threads on Twitter and on Broadway Sports Media. So go check that out. We got some new defensive backs that are going to be they've made some moves there. So we'll get into what the secondary could look like for the Tennessee Titans, as well as the quarterback situation in the AFC South. Looks very different today than it did this time last week. So we'll do some of that. However, as I mentioned, we do have a new sponsor on the show for this week and next. And that is our wonderful friends at J.E. Dunn, the Hammer Down Race. It is a 5K. It's the 8th annual 5K. All of the proceeds will go to benefit Our Kids, of course, which is a charity here in Middle Tennessee that protects and treats sexually abused children. One of the best collections of people you will ever meet in your entire life. So the J.E. Dunn Hammer Down Race, the 8th annual 5K. All the proceeds going to benefit our kids. It is on April 2nd. It is in 2 Saturdays. Make sure you come out and run the race. We need runners because when you run, you get to come hang out and there's all kinds of cool stuff and you help the kids of Middle Tennessee. So we need runners. Hammerdown.raceroster.com is the website. Hammerdown.raceroster.com. You probably could also just Google it all. Dawn Davenport is the MC. So Dawn's going to be out there helping us out as well. We appreciate her and all of the time on the show this week and next donated by our great friends at the Kingston Group. So remember them as well. All right. Bills are paid, Zach. Barnes, Tannehill comparison. And I want to start this by saying...
Love it. I loved it when you sent this to me.
I said it on the show a couple of weeks ago. And I was like, man, I sure hope this doesn't happen in March. But sure enough, it absolutely happens. Tennessee, like everyone else in the SEC, frankly, wets the bed over the weekend. And it is not fair, necessarily, that coaches and quarterbacks are judged on what they do, in particular in basketball and in the NFL, by what they do in the playoffs. It's not necessarily fair that Rick Barnes is the 5th highest paid coach in all of America, and he's a wonderful, amazing, high-quality piece to the University of Tennessee athletic department. He generates tons of revenue. He wins tons of games. The fans love him. He's a great guy. The team loves him. He's a great recruiter, all this other stuff. Sounds pretty familiar to what the Titans have at quarterback, if you ask me, because again, they choked and they lose to a bad team. Not a bad team. Every team in the tournament's good, but they go out before they're supposed to. Ryan Tannehill, we've had the conversation all offseason. I don't necessarily want to revisit all of the specifics of the Ryan Tannehill side of things. So my first thought is it's just unfair, Zach, that we live in a world where you can do all this amazing stuff for your organization for 11 months a year. But when push comes to shove, if you don't win playoff games and you don't compete for championships, that's all we're going to eventually, that's all we're going to judge you by. And that's going to happen to Ryan Tannehill. And it's already happening to Rick Barnes at Tennessee. Do you buy the comparison?
Well, I mean, Rick Barnes hasn't done anything since what, 2008? Like, I kind of get the comparisons. That's why I kind of like the thing. You have to, at some point, someone's going to have to prove that they can win in the big games. And what did I say on this show last week? It doesn't matter what seed they are. They weren't going to make it that far in the tournament anyway. And it's because of Rick Barnes. Now, listen, Rick Barnes isn't the one that's shooting 2 from 18 or whatever the stat was, from the field. But he's the one that's letting them do it. Like, at some point, don't you devise plans to say, hey, we're in this game pretty close. Maybe we should stop shooting these things. Let me throw up some plays or do something. Like, just letting the kids keep on doing that seems like a little bit of a disservice to himself and the team, to be honest with you, because it's like, okay, we'll just keep on chucking it up. Maybe you'll pull yourself out of it in this crucial moment. This isn't a regular season game. And it's kind of just like Tannehill, right? I mean, they could go 2 for 18. Ryan Tannehill throws 3 interceptions. I mean, it's kind of the same thing, but there are people that didn't put those players in a position to succeed. And I'm just telling you, maybe it's the mystique or the luck surrounding Rick Barnes. Maybe it's just aura that will never escape him, no matter what team he's on, no matter how good his team is. His teams are destined to lose. But it's under his watch, so I don't know what people expect. Like, I just don't get it. Like, this is UT sports, right? Well, the whole fan base just rose up and just demolished Kentucky for like 24 hours, and then they do this.
I do want to hear the person who's like, see, we should have been a 2 seed. We never would have lost to an 11. And I'm like, if you lose to 11, you shouldn't have been anything. like that's the other side of that argument. I will say that I think there's two differences here, and I don't know what you think about this, but there's a reason basketball playoff series in the NBA are 7 games and that NFL football games are 1. Because I think football, you don't need a large sample size to sort of dictate what's going to happen. Now, in the NFL, it's different because it's very, very even. In college football, I think if Georgia and Michigan played 7 times in a 7-game series, Georgia would win all 7 of them. And so the difference between a 7-game series and a 1-game series isn't all that different. Whereas in basketball, like Tennessee did, if you just have a bad shooting night, which sometimes is not even the other team's fault. Like you talked about it, Tennessee's players were just open and just missing shots the entire game. So that's not any, like the defense wasn't doing that, but Tennessee got tight at the end, and it's Rick Barnes' job to calm them down. I mentioned this on the show like 3 or 4 weeks ago, and I was like, man, I don't want this to be a thing that happens But sure enough, here it is, and I can't ignore the comparison because Ryan Tannehill has been and here's the other thing that's the same. Ryan Tannehill has been great and is going to be the starting quarterback for this team in the regular season. Rick Barnes has been great in the regular season and is going to be the head coach for this team moving forward. Yep. You're not going neither one of them is going anywhere, at least this year for Tannehill.
Yeah, the only difference is that Tannehill is probably not going to be here next year unless he wins a Super Bowl. And Rick Barnes probably is going to have 2 or 3 more years of Rick Barnes at UT unless an epic, regular season collapse happens.
Oh, he's not going anywhere. But he's not achieving in March what the 5th highest paid coach in college basketball should achieve. Here's my question about Tannehill winning the Super Bowl, because there obviously could be a plan in John Robinson's head where he's going, you know what? I'm looking at quarterbacks in this draft class. I'm looking at quarterbacks. Maybe I'm trading for them. I'm probably going to move on from Ryan Tannehill at this time next year. We need a succession plan at the position. Here's my question to you. I want you to turn your fan hat on here.
Oh, the fan hat. Okay.
Turn the fan hat, which means F-bombs and everything else. That's what I want. If Tannehill, how many years of missing the playoffs with an aging, old, overpaid Ryan Tannehill would you be okay with if they win the Super Bowl? Like 10 years? How many bad years of football? Man. How many god-awful, irrelevant, bad years? And I'm not suggesting this would happen because I think Vrabel and John Robinson are too good at their job. But I'm just saying, hypothetically, how many god-awful, non-playoff, bad Titan seasons would you be willing to trade for the one magical Joe Flacco, Ryan Tannehill run to the Super Bowl?
Ooh, I because now I'm spoiled after all these winning seasons. I think I could only take, 2, and I'm also I won't say that like I'm super realistic, but I'm a pretty level-headed realistic fan. Tannehill, even with the Super Bowl win, gets like 2 horrible seasons. In fact, he would only probably get 1 with me. And I think that if there were 2 horrible seasons back to back after the Super Bowl, because that would mean that they would have done an extension and everybody's getting paid $40 million a year right now. They would put them. I would be actually a little surprised if he got like a 4 or 5 year extension. And I don't think that he would last that long, and he shouldn't last that long.
It's so funny.
Despite bad seasons.
It's so funny. So as a fan of a team that's won 2 Super Bowls in the last 25 years, I think every 10 or 12 years, if you get a Super Bowl ring, like you're gold, dude. Like if you get a Super Bowl ring every 15 years, I think as a fan, like that's all you can ask for. You can't ask for Tom Brady and the Patriots dynasty. But if you told me that, like, if you told me that Aaron Rodgers and the Packers goes and wins the Super Bowl this year, and then he retires and I get 10 years of god-awful Jordan Love, I would do it in 2 seconds. I would be like, yep, give me the 3rd ring. I want to enjoy that one. Put that one on the wall too. Put that skin on the wall and be like, you know what? I'm good for a decade. I think I could handle it.
Wow. I don't know if I could. I don't know if I could handle. I barely handled it the last decade before Tannehill. I mean, I couldn't handle that. And that wasn't even a full 10 years of misery.
Because you know what, again, this would be a wonderful problem for Titans fans. But if he were to win a Super Bowl, they have to bring him back on an extension. Like they have to rework the deal and bring him back on like a 5-year deal. Like they have to do it because he won the freaking Super Bowl. And then we'd all be like, wait a second, this isn't going to work again.
Yeah.
So, anyway, just wanted to float that out there.
I like it. I just don't think I could handle. I could maybe handle like 3 and 13 seasons, and that's about it. Maybe. I don't even know if I could do it.
You'd forget all about the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
By the way, great place to watch basketball games. If you would like to watch the 2 greatest Jenga players of all time,
it was
head to head. Jaspers, great game room, by the way. Total free shout here, by the way. Go check out Jaspers. We played probably the greatest Jenga game ever in the history of the world. Just want to throw that out there for people. Pop-a shot, air hockey, all kinds of great stuff. If you're watching tournament games, they got the big screen over there, so go to Jaspers. Total free shout for one of our other clients here on the 440 Sports Network. All right, Robert Woods. Let's get to Robert Woods. Now, as someone who covers recruiting in college football, I have a longer relationship, let's say, with Robert Woods than maybe a lot of Titans fans would ever even, frankly, that should any Titans fans ever have. This was the number 1 receiver recruit in the nation coming out of high school. He was a guaranteed 5-star prospect, the number 3 player in the country, regardless of position. He goes to USC. He's a consensus All-American. He is great all 3 years at USC. He gets drafted by the Bills, and he plays with E.J. Manuel and neckbeard Kyle Orton, and I don't even know who else. Like, Tyrod Taylor for a couple of years. So his years in Buffalo, statistically, you're not going to like him. But then he goes, when he actually plays with good teams and good quarterbacks and good offensive schemes, his numbers are exceptional. He goes out to LA with 68 career games in Los Angeles, 5.4 receptions per game, and about 70 plus yards of total offense per game because they use him in the running game a little bit. They dabble him, they mix him in. He gets traded for a 2023 6th-round pick,
which is a steal.
There's no risk here. This is an all-around great football player who's not young, but he's not old. To me, this is DeMarco Murray. This is Ryan Tannehill. This is John Robinson at his finest, going and acquiring an asset that no one else wants, that he knows is going to fit in with his team. And I think he does everything exactly the way the Titans want him to do it in the offense and off the field. I could not think of a better move for the Titans than this. So obviously I'm pro Robert Woods here.
Well, listen, someone should tell A.J. Brown to hold on to his butt because he's actually going to be around a real leader in Robert Woods, apparently. Because when you look at what everybody has said about Robert Woods leaving, down to the media, who are personally feel very affected by this trade. Like, they're very sad that he is gone and that they don't get to interview him and they don't get to talk to him, and he's a great human. Above all that, this is I made a tweet about the Julio Jones trade, and we'll get a little bit retrospective on Julio Jones, I think, in the pod, where I said that that should turn out to be one of the best trades that, John Robinson has ever made. And I always forget that, he traded for Ryan Tannehill, which I should not forget. It just doesn't compute.
For nothing.
Nothing.
Miami paid for like 2/3 of his salary.
And it's turned out to be one of the worst trades John Robinson has ever done. This Robert Woods thing, I get that everybody is quick to compare it to Julio Jones, but he is 3 years younger than Julio Jones.
Why are people doing that?
I think it's just an easy connection to make, right? You're trading for an injured wide receiver again for another injured wide receiver, and that's the connection that they make. Look, ACLs, this isn't 2002. I mean, ACLs are almost pretty much nothing. Now, obviously, Lawan, who is a lot bigger, and Bud Dupree, who's also a lot bigger, struggled a little bit. And Bud Dupree even admitted he probably came back a little too quick. We don't know what the rehab style is for those guys. From the way it sounded like from Lawan's comments at certain junctures in the offseason, it sounded like he wasn't really going to be full force running until June or July. He wasn't even going to attempt it. Robert Woods is already at least, obviously he's a month ahead, right? Because between him and Bud Dupree, but he's also a month and a few weeks ahead in the jogging stage than Bud Dupree was in his stage of the rehab. So I get it. It's easy to make those comparisons. But let me tell you something. Cam Akers came back from a torn Achilles in a record time and looked phenomenal when he came back. If Bob Logs, and that's what I'm going to call him Bob Logs. If Bob Logs,
that's a porno name.
Yeah,
that is what you call yourself when you're a porno in the 70s.
If he stays in California, does his rehab, and doesn't attempt to come to Nashville and do his rehab, you're going to see a quick turnaround. And he's already projected to come back, he said, in the spring and all this stuff. But he doesn't have to be ready till the end of July, which would be pretty late to be ready. That would be almost a perfect time for him. So I'm just not concerned. You're getting one of the best blocking wide receivers in the league, which I know everybody's tired of hearing it, but at some point people just have to realize that's what this team wants its wide receivers to do, and they're going to value it. He still has deep enough speed, better speed than anybody else on the team. And he just is always in the right place. After watching receivers end over drive after drive and play after play, not know what the hell they're doing.
This is a professional.
It's a professional, and it's great for A.J. Brown. He's on a manageable contract because guess what? After this year, if they don't restructure Robert Woods, after this year, they can cut him for zero dead money. Cost him nothing. It was a 13.5 1-year rental for a top-tier wide receiver who should get you at least Corey Davis-like numbers from 2020.
it's funny. It's
no
funny
downside.
It's funny that you mentioned that. And Bud Dupree was December 2nd. Taylor Lewan, ironically, Taylor Lewan and Caleb Farley were both October 18th, which is just weird. That's just a weird thing that they both tore their ACLs on the exact same day.
Yeah, crazy.
Robert Woods was November 12th. So here's what I would admit as a non-medical expert, which is that the human body reacts a million gazillion different ways depending on a million and gazillion different factors. So there's no way to truly present or project what's going to happen with Robert Woods. Here would be my question for a medical professional, would be to answer me this. Taylor Lewan and Bud Dupree are carrying a lot more weight on their bodies, and therefore that could be a factor. However, smaller players like Woods and Farley have to be far more explosive and also put a different type of stress on their knee. So what I would like to know from a medical professional is which one is tougher on a knee, the weight of a tackle and a defensive end, or the explosiveness of a receiver and corner. That's the question I think that people should be asking that no one really can answer about any one individual athlete. So that's the one thing I would say. But let's say hypothetically, let's say he comes out at 85%. Let's say he's at 85% of himself for next season. That's still about what? Like if you do his 16-game average into 17 games based on what he did for the Rams, you're looking at a guy who's, I think Corey Davis is about right. You're looking at about 60 catches for like 900 yards and like 5 touchdowns.
Which is perfect.
And that would be totally worth it for a guy who also blocks, who you also can hand the football to in some trick plays.
I was about to say, don't forget the touchdown from an in around because that's going to happen.
Yes. You can use him a little bit like Jonnu Smith. You can line him up all over the field. He can play in the slot. He can play outside. He can take a shot down the middle. He's tough as absolute nails. Like the guy is a total professional. And I'm biased because I covered him coming out of high school. And so I'm biased because I've liked his game since he was a 17-year-old kid. And I think he's a great fit for what the Titans want to do. And they got him for nothing, and they can get out of the contract for basically nothing.
Right. It's a perfect deal. I mean, these people who are like, well, I can't believe they're trading for a 30-year-old wide receiver coming off an ACL tear for a 2023 6th-round pick that costs them nothing. It costs them absolutely nothing. It's not even It's like these people are just trying to find ways to complain about something, and good for them for, staying true to the brand, I guess. But at some point, people got to be realistic about what really matters. And what really matters is that you've got a wide receiver too, that you can not only pair with AJ Brown now, but if you keep him around, he's on an affordable contract for the remainder of his season. So you can now get a wide receiver 3 in the draft and be fine for a couple of years at wide receiver for maybe a rookie quarterback.
Yeah, I don't like. What does trading a 2023 6th-round draft pick cost you? Like avoids John Robinson drafting a bad Washington State quarterback. Like I don't like. He doesn't know how to use that pick anyway. Like let's use it on Robert Woods.
That's Brady Breeze. He basically traded Robert Woods for Brady Breeze,
for Cole McDonald and Luke Falk. That's what happened.
Yeah.
All right. So let's wrap this up though with 2 other parts of the conversation, which is they also added a starting tight end in Austin Hooper. We don't know the specifics of the deal, but it looks to be about a 1 year. There's been some reports about a $6 million deal, but we'll see what the numbers are when the cap hit comes out. I saw an article about this with him, and it said he struggled in Cleveland because he, quote, got shoddy quarterback play in a run-first offense. And I thought, ooh, that doesn't sound good. That doesn't sound good. I also covered Austin Hooper coming out of high school. And this is a big-time player that went to Stanford, played really, really well, was a really good player, 2-time Pro Bowler for the Atlanta Falcons. And if he gives you his career averages, 6 years in the NFL, he would have 57 receptions for 595 yards and 5 touchdowns. He's had some bad years and some good years, but if he gives you his exact career averages, he gives you all you could ever ask for, I think, in this offense for a starting number 1 tight end. So we can package Austin Hooper into this conversation with Ryan Tannehill probably had a pretty good weekend because he got a number 2 receiver and a number 1 tight end.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing really missing is one offensive lineman from this being a banged-up job of an offseason. And he's getting weapons, and they're not done getting weapons. I mean, they may, technically get a wide receiver and a tight end in the draft, right? You're obviously going to see them double down in the draft at some point. And it's a good thing because this is a tight end class and a wide receiver class that you can find basically anywhere from third round to almost the sixth round. You're going to be able to find a contributor because they're that deep. Whatever kind of tight end you're looking for, whatever kind of wide receiver you're looking for, there's going to be one that can contribute. And people are forgetting, and I hate to bring this up because I'm not a big fan of him. Des Fitzpatrick is there too. So, this team at the end of the season, John Robinson's at the combine. Man, he really gets it now. He really understands what's going through after completing a full season and blah, blah, blah. Don't sleep on what his involvement may be, whether you like it or not. But when you look at the tight end class, Austin Hooper is such an upgrade, massive 100 times better than anything they had on the roster last year. He can block and he can catch. So when he's on the field, the offense will be less predictable.
Yeah, I totally agree. And he's also been durable. He's played 13 games at least 13 games in every season of his career. This is a guy who's, again, with Matt Ryan in Atlanta was very good, was not as good with Cleveland, but nor is anyone when they go to Cleveland. So again, this is a guy who was a high pedigree player, the way Robert Woods is a high pedigree player. And I believe I saw some quotes, and I wish I probably should attribute them. I don't know who got the quotes, but basically talking to Kevin Hogan, who was his quarterback at Stanford, who's now on the Titans roster, basically saying, this guy convinced me of everything I needed to know about this organization, and that's why I came here. So again, I apologize to any media members if I don't attribute that quote properly, but I did see that floating around on the Twitter sphere, and that makes total sense because once you're in this organization and then you talk about this organization and the way Vrabel's hands-on with the players, it resonates with a lot of professional football players. So Julio Jones, I don't understand why people are comparing this, and we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on what it means for the team. I think everyone knows that after June 1st, they save about $10 million, and that's all you kind of need to know. I am shocked at the amount of hindsight that's going on with this. This is not, to me, Jadeveon Clowney in a free agent negotiation. This is like, hey, we're ready to win right now. We've got a chance at a Hall of Famer. He won us the Seattle game. We go out and we get him. Do I wish we had a second-round pick? Of course. Do I think they should trade back to get an extra second-round pick? Yes. Should they have cut Julio Jones? Yes. Like, I think two things can be true, which is that Julio Jones was the right move for them at the time, and that also it's the right move to move on from him right now. I'm not sure why we're using revisionist history to try to, I don't know. Does that make sense to me? I don't know. What do you think?
It was the right move at the time. It didn't turn out the way that John Robinson intended because Julio's hamstrings were basically just guitar strings that were already strummed to death. And, that's something you can't really control because you hope that it's going to get better. And it just never did. It didn't work out. He cut bait and he replaced Julio with Robert Woods. That whole thing, it basically is a roller coaster, right? I mean, if you're watching on YouTube, which you should be, it starts up at the top and you trade for Julio Jones, Super Bowl team. And then his hamstrings just slowly take him down. Titans trade him. They're gaining cap space, and it goes all the way up to Robert Woods. So it's just one big U of chain of events.
I'm not kidding about this. I was 15 feet away when Julio Jones got hurt making that spectacular catch in the back of the end zone in training camp. I was about 20 feet away, and he walked into the thing, and he really wasn't ever the same player like the rest of the year. He had the great game against Seattle, but like I'm with you on, and also ACLs, you said ACL, like it's not 2002. Hamstrings for a 34-year-old are a different deal than an ACL for a 29-year-old. ACLs are a singular event that you recover from, whereas hamstrings can just plague you forever. Soft tissue stuff is much sort of more lingering. I just don't understand hey, it didn't work out, we shouldn't have tried it. Like, no, I think you had to try it. Like, I think you had to do it.
Yeah, that is totally revisionist because any team and they outbid other teams for it, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's just because something doesn't work out doesn't mean you should have never tried it.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
You can't go back and say, well, the Titans, it's like the Dolphins fans saying, well, we should have never traded we should never traded Ryan Tannehill because, he went on to do great things over in Tennessee. Well, you didn't have Art Smith coming through that door. You didn't have a Derrick Henry coming through that door and a good offensive line. So that doesn't matter. What matters is that you did. Yeah. And they traded for Julio Jones, and it was a unanimously praised decision across the board in Nashville. And it still should be. It just didn't work out. A+ grade at the time, F- grade now, right?
This is one of the worst problems with media, fans, social media, Twitter, radio, whatever, is you don't get to change your opinion without if you have new facts and new information, then you can change your opinion. You don't get to go back and say, oh no, my opinion would have been different today had I known all. No, that's not how the world works.
No,
if you said it was a bad trade at the time, then you can stand up today and say, I think it was a bad move. They shouldn't have done it. But I need a receipt from you that shows that you were saying, I don't think they should have Julio Jones on their team. You don't get to change your opinion because it didn't work out. That's not how the world works with opinions. I know people are shocked by that. But it's designated for the June 1st deadline or whatever. I know you've got a lot of thoughts on restructuring, whether it's Lawan or Byard or even Robert Woods. Can you try to give everybody the cliff notes of how the cap works from, through the next couple of weeks and months on how they're going to manage all the dollar figures and where they're at and what numbers do they have to be at and where, and try to explain to people how that all works, because they're bringing on all these big dollar contracts. They're cutting some people, Jackrabbit Jenkins, for example, Roger Saffold, but now they're cutting Jones, but not until June. So what do people need to know about the numbers?
Basically, the top 51 contracts on your roster count towards the salary cap number. So whatever those cap hits on the top 51, that's it. So not all 90 technically count against salary cap. And I use 90 players because that's eventually what's going to make up your roster as it goes on. Based on that, because when you add someone drops off. So because it's always got to be 51. Based on that, right now as it sits, you need about $4 million, roughly $4.5 million, roughly, for your draft class. That's going to come when June 2nd happens, and that's what they're going to use the Julio Jones money for. Right now, they're over, depending on what the Hooper contracts and the AJ Moore is also another player that signed a deal, and all these Dontrell Hilliard, Buster Screen.
Yep.
And the Woods trade is technically not official, but the Woods trade, once it's added in and all that, they're going to be over by $7 million, which means that they're going to have to restructure at least 2 or 3 people to still have money to make moves in free agency, because they got to get back under the cap as quick as possible. So to do that, you take a base salary and you spread it out over the remainder of the year of the contract. So basically a $10 million for Robert Woods could technically save you about, I think up to $9 million in cap savings based on the 13.5 that he was going to have this year.
So basically all you need to know is that the salary cap's not really a real thing.
Yeah, it's fluid. It's a guideline that teams have to follow, and they figure out creative ways to get under it. Another creative way that I didn't know is that some teams have before, and I didn't know this, taken money from next year's cap hit or next year's base salary and converted it. They did a reverse. They added money into in the current year because they weren't going to use that cap space to free up cap space next year. So you can almost reverse it. It's like a reverse restructure.
Fascinating.
Fascinating. The cap is fascinating.
Who should they restructure? Because I think Lawan is the name that everyone's like, well, what are they going to do with him? Versus
I think Lawan should be extended. Okay, so I personally think that is the best move that the Titans can make, is to extend Lawan. The reason being is because he wants to retire a Titan. You get more money if you extend Lawan versus a restructure. So you might as well do it, because why are you trying to create another hole here soon?
Yeah.
Because it's, I think, either this year or next year. I think next year's his last year anyway. So you might as well just get an extension done. He started recovering from his ACL. I think Byard, Robert Woods, are both candidates to restructure as well, because you restructure all three of those guys and do an extension for Lewan, you're talking about being at a positive $19.9 million cap space. And then you got Julio Jones coming later, and then you roll over what you don't use.
That makes sense. Okay, I just want everybody to clarify that. And if you want more, Broadway Sports Media at FWords Pod on Twitter. You got all kinds of stuff on there. All right, the defensive secondary, real quickly before the rest of the AFC quarterback situation, and we wrap up today. But the secondary, they move on from Jenkins, saves a bunch of money there. I don't know what this tells you to me, because we just talked about how they've brought in Hooper and Woods, but they're still going to look at maybe tight end and receiver in the draft. Cornerback was sort of already a possible option for them. How much of this are you thinking is tied to their confidence in Caleb Farley, their confidence in Christian Fulton, their confidence in Elijah Molden? How much of it is that they feel like the cornerback class is very good? There's going to be a lot of really good players available in the late 20s in the first round, for example, at that position. So what is the calculus right now in the secondary for the Titans?
What it tells me is that they have the utmost faith in their pass rush, because when you saw these players that they brought in off the street all last year, Greg Maben, Brian Body Calhoun, Buster Screen, all these guys they brought in, they all performed admirably and really well in a lot of games for an extended period of time, to where, because of the pass rush and the defensive line and all that working together, the linebackers have gotten better. You've retained your defensive line and your edge rushers. Yeah. And this tells me that they feel that they can plug in any kind of cornerback right there. And that if they need a veteran to step in because someone's injured, it's Buster. And they believe that there is no real difference between Buster and Jackrabbit other than dollar signs. Now, whether they prove to be true on that, we'll see. I mean, Jackrabbit got a lot of undue hate, but he filled in very well for what he was supposed to do.
He was a nice identity. He was a nice identity guy too. Like,
yeah,
a glue guy, whatever.
I am totally 100% out on drafting a cornerback in the first round. And if they do, that means that they have zero faith in Caleb Farley. And there is another first round bust that's coming from John Robinson on his resume, because Christian Fulton is your outside guy. Caleb Farley's an outside guy, and Elijah Molden's an outside guy. And if they're drafting that guy, I wouldn't understand it. You could draft one later, like I think his name is Marcus Jones out of Houston, who's also an electric returner as well. You could draft him in the 5th or 6th round, and I'm fine. But drafting one in the first, no way. That is going to be peak Zach Lyons rant.
This sort of goes to what we were talking about with Julio Jones. You and I did a live show when they drafted Caleb Farley, and we both raved about it. And I saw him on the practice field and thought, man, this guy has clearly got the ability. I think you would love to play Fulton, Farley, and Molden as your top 3 corners for the foreseeable future. I think that's what they would love to do. I agree with the pass rush comment. I think that's totally valid. This all tells me, because Christian Fulton graded out much like Harold Landry, they both were very much projected first-round picks. They fell into the early second round, and John Robinson, all this does is cement to me that John Robinson needs to trade back from 26 to like 39 and get 2 pieces in the second round and not 1 piece at 26. That's what this tells me. So I guess I'm kind of agreeing with you, even though this show is entirely about agreement between you and I today. So far, I guess I kind of agree with you that I don't want to see him take a corner, but if they take one with if they get a receiver in a corner in the second round or an offensive lineman in a corner, like, I'm good if it's in the second or third round. I don't want to see it in the first round. I kind of agree with you there.
I could see them taking an edge. If it's going to be a defender, I could see them taking an edge in the first round. I just have a hard time unless one of the top corners, top 2 or top 3 corners fall, which is entirely possible, right? If Derek Stingley falls for whatever reason.
I'm telling you, Derek Stingley is maybe the best player in the entire draft, and he's going to fall.
And if he falls to 26, they would be crazy not to take him. I'll be honest. I would understand it, but they're taking some, dork face nobody's really ever heard of that is a 3rd round grade by all intents and purposes, then I'm going to be upset. If it's top 3, that's fine. If it's just another guy, then don't draft him at 26.
What is it? What are you, 5th grade now? Fifth grade?
I'll have all kinds of names as much as this goes on.
My 5-year-old calls me like doo-doo head all the time, and she's got better insults than you. All right, let's see here. Defensive back, we got Matt Ryan's traded to the Colts for a 3rd round pick. Marcus Mariota, who I do think is a good leader, was traded is signed but to the Falcons, and Deshaun Watson, of course, is in Cleveland. What do we make of the quarterback situations in the AFC South and in the AFC in general?
Okay, well, with Deshaun Watson in Cleveland, I don't know where Baker's going to go and how you can convince the team to take Baker on after you trashed him in the media and have no leverage. You don't have any leverage right now. So are you going to have to give up a pick with, it's almost like you're trading Jared Goff, right? They had to give away picks to get rid of Jared Goff, and that's what they're going to have to do with Baker. It's not unheard of. It's just not ideal.
Right.
Carson Wentz is gone, of course. Matt Ryan statistically is going to have a worse season than Carson Wentz. I'm throwing it out there right now. He's going to have less yardage. He's going to have less touchdowns, and he's going to throw more interceptions, and he's going to have a lower yards per attempt, or maybe the same yards per attempt in there, because they're not going to want him to throw. He's not coming in to throw. He's just coming in to basically hand the ball off, because who's he throwing to? Mo Alley Cox, Michael Pittman, who's okay, but he's there to hand off to Jonathan Taylor. But the thing is that he's throwing a lot of 4th quarter interceptions. He's got the most since 2017 4th quarter interceptions, and that includes Jameis Winston, who threw 30 interceptions one year. Like, it's not good in the 4th quarter for Matt Ryan, and that continued, and he is just in a sharp, steep decline. This is not Phillip Rivers. Phillip Rivers was still throwing for 4,000 yards 7 or 8 consecutive seasons after even when he was older than Matt Ryan. This is not Phillip Rivers. This is a worse version of this. Is basically the love child of Jacoby Brissett and Phillip Rivers. Like, you're getting a guy that's a known name, but you're not getting a guy that's going to be able to throw it deep.
Hang on. He threw for 3,968 yards. So we're going to round up 32 yards and call that 4,000, which gives him like 11 consecutive seasons of 4,000 yards. So I'm gonna defend Matt Ryan a little bit here and say I think he is with
the 17th game, by the way.
Now, also that's fair. And again, I'm not even saying he was good last year. 20 touchdowns in 17 games is not good. that's just not good. It's very Ryan Tannehill-ish, actually. Here's what I think he's smarter with the football. Forget the numbers for a second. I think he is a significantly smarter player than Carson Wentz. Okay.
Yeah, he's smarter. I mean, I don't think anybody would dispute that, but that doesn't change anything when you don't have the arm strength to get the ball somewhere.
You might be 100% right on that. You might be 100% right.
He's not going to make 15 left-handed throws. I'll tell you that.
I think this is significantly better for the Colts than Jimmy Garoppolo or Carson Wentz. So
I don't know if it's significantly better, but I would say it is the best of a bad situation.
That's kind of where I'm going here. Is I don't think that those two, like, I think he's better than both of those two. I don't know if he's good enough to be like great and win the division or challenge the Titans or even get to a wild card spot. I don't know, but I do think that the Colts have made I think they're better today with Matt Ryan than they would have been with Carson Wentz or Jimmy Garoppolo. And so that I don't know if that means anything, but that's just my opinion. That's just my opinion on it. If you disagree, that's fine. But that's my thought on it.
I think Jimmy G gets the more wins in the end than Matt Ryan would have.
I think he sucks. I think Jimmy Garoppolo sucks.
I think they all suck. I mean, I maybe I'm being too harsh on Matt Ryan, but they're not going to ask. I mean, yeah, I guess. I mean, sure. I mean, he's got those. He's a Hall of Fame box score guy. Like, when I think of Matt Ryan, there's only been like one season where he was truly the best at his position. He's
had 4 straight losing seasons. His best of which probably was,
and contrary to popular belief, wasn't that big of a difference in pass block win rate between the Indianapolis Colts and the Atlanta Falcons.
Ooh,
the Colts were 20. The Colts were 20% as a team in pass block win rate, and they've lost, I believe, 2 starters, if I'm not mistaken.
Man,
and then the Falcons were 26 in pass block win rate. not a huge difference when you're talking about what he's going to. And really Kyle Pitts, Russell Gage, and for whatever time you had Calvin Ridley and Cordarrelle Patterson is a better collective of weapons. With Art Smith, who runs a quarterback friendly offense, is a better set of weapons than really what you have in the passing game in Indianapolis. He's just going to be a guy that he's just there to turn around and hand the ball. That's what he's there for.
He is. I agree. He's there to turn around, hand the ball off, get them into the right play, not throw interceptions and complete short passes. I think
his yards per attempt is going to be really low.
Yeah, right. I think he is better at that than Carson Wentz or Jimmy Garoppolo, though. So
yeah, I think you're right. In the end, probably I wouldn't.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
I also will admit I have always liked Matt Ryan as a player. Again, this is my college football bias going all the way back as the rookie of the year and in Boston College, carrying Boston College to the ACC championship game, carrying the Falcons to the Super Bowl. Wasn't his fault that they lost. I just like the player. I have no idea. The arm could be dead. The arm could be gone, and it
sure looked like it's dead. No, I mean, it looks really bad.
Right. You might be right. And I like Marcus Mariota better than every other Titans fan in the history of the world, and that's okay. That's okay. I will own that. It's me. It's a me problem, and I'm fine with that. Zach, where can people find your work and what you got coming up on the pod this week?
Okay, so you can find most of my written work on BroadwaySportsMedia.com. You can find I put out a lot of data on Twitter at FWordsPod. And then, obviously, the podcast, Football and Other F Words. It is going to be released on Wednesday this week because we have a special guest and we had to make accommodations. Ooh. Lucas Panzica of the Lucas Panzica Show on 104.5 that airs from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. or 10 p.m. to 1 p.m. 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. I was right the first time. 10 a.m. to 1 p.m.
10 a.m. to 1 p.m.
Yeah. Lucas Panzica Show. You can catch it. Lucas Panzica.
Who?
It's Lucas Panzica, and then there's that guy, Buck Rising.
Tell him to pick a country. Tell Lucas to pick a country, okay?
I will ask him to pick a country. We'll hold his feet to the fire.
Pick a country, Lucas.
But we're going to be talking to him this week, so that'll be good stuff.
All right, well, go check it out. Football and Other F Words, of course, everywhere you get your podcast. BroadwaySportsMedia.com is the website. Always a pleasure, my friend. Of course, a reminder, sign up to go run in our 5K, please. The J.E. Dunn Hammer Down Race, the 8th annual 5K. Of course, all of the proceeds go to benefit our kids. This time on the show, donated by the Kingston Groups. I know it's a lot of names there, but just all you need to know is the J.E. Dunn Hammer Down Race, 8th annual. Dawn Davenport's going to be emceeing. So come out, support the kids of Middle Tennessee. Our Kids is arguably the greatest organization that I have ever been a part of. They are the most amazing people trying to help kids in Middle Tennessee who are sexually abused. Hammerdown.raceroster.com is the website. Hammerdown.raceroster.com. Just do some Google searching. You'll find it. Come out and race. It doesn't cost very much money. It's good for your health. It's good for the kids. Come out and race with us. The 8th annual 5K. Hammer Down, J.E. Dunn, all that great stuff. For Zach Lyons, my name is Braden Gall. Rate, review, subscribe. Check out the YouTube. All that great stuff. Share the product as well. Thank you guys all for listening. This has been the 440 for Tuesday, March 22nd.